Come blast off in my time machine. Third eye feeling like an Evazine. Blast off, blast off, blast off, blast off. Come blast off in my time machine. Third eye feeling like an Evazine. Blast off, blast off, blast off, blast off.
Hello, everybody. This is Ryan, the original outlaw of the airwaves, bringing you another episode of Hero Paranormal Podcast. And on today's episode, we have a very special guest, Steve Barone. He is a Las Vegas local of the Summerlin area who has been able to, well, without a doubt, been able to catch and capture different anomalies along the mountaintops, airways of the valleys, and spots that are usual pathways for these unidentified aerial phenomena. Definitely check out UFOs over Vegas. Steve has been a recent guest on Coast to Coast, Fade to Black, and many more, trying to explain what it is that we are actually seeing in his videos. And living in Las Vegas, I have been able to witness some of these things myself. I'm privy to the area he is filming most recently, and there are anomalies geographically and otherwise that, historically could help explain some of what we're seeing in these skies. But hey, I'm not the expert. I can't wait to talk to Steve. He's going to break it down for us. If you haven't checked it out yet, check out heroparanormal.com. Check out spacewolfresearch.com, something just for fun. And get on the podcast. Check us out at YouTube. Like and subscribe, Hero Paranormal. Without further ado, Steve, welcome to the Hero Paranormal Podcast. I'm super excited to talk to you today because you're kind of onto something that a lot of people, in my opinion, have missed. And it's kind of a magical area that even I would have kind of brushed over and not really, I guess, taken for granted if I hadn't have moved here and witnessed it myself. And I wanted to ask you a couple of questions. What first kind of brought your attention to the fact that we may be having anomalous unidentified aircraft in a particular area and actually all over Vegas?
Yeah, well, it was something that I was always interested in, Ryan, but I never really followed up on any of it until I had a pair of UFO sightings. It was actually the first one and the second one. The first one was in Nova Scotia. It was unbelievable. But the second one is the one that really put me into a mode where I wanted to do what I'm doing now. And that was in April of 2014. I was in my backyard here in Summerlin. And back then I used to smoke cigarettes, and I've quit about almost 3 years ago now, but I was out there, and out of the corner of my eye, I spotted this just beautiful crimson red light. And I turned and looked at it, and what it appeared to be was an arc, kind of a semicircle, with about 20 tall, tubular-looking crimson or red lights, all side by side, and it was moving northward. And immediately I knew this was something just unbelievable. And, I jumped up and I grabbed my Galaxy telephone out of my pocket, trying to turn on the camera while still keeping my eye on this thing because it was moving north. And all of a sudden it just stopped in its tracks and started backtracking in the same path that it had been on. And that got my adrenaline going. I was actually, I hate to admit it, but a little bit spooked because I thought it saw me. And at the time, it couldn't have been more than a quarter mile, maybe just a little bit more away. And then it stopped again and it continued on its path to the north of the city. But anyway, I shot video of that thing for over 5 minutes. I turned it into MUFON, and it took about 3 months to get the investigation results back. Initially, they said it was a consumer drone, which I knew it wasn't. And I've actually proved to them that it wasn't, just by using screen grabs and comparing it with what they were showing me. So anyway, that was my first one to actually capture on video. But that is also what gave me the idea to make a hobby out of it. So slowly but surely, I bought a new digital camcorder that shoots in HD, 1080p, and a tripod and all that, and then just started going out there every night, Ryan. When I do something and I'm interested in something, I never do it halfway. I decided that it was a numbers game, and that I'm going to make a real strong effort to document these, because, in a 2.5-year period, I saw 2 UFOs, but not like just seeing a light in the sky. These were so close that I knew they were real, and that's what motivated me. And so for about 3.5 years, I was out almost every night. I mean, there were only a few reasons that I wouldn't go out. One would be the weather. If it was lightning and rain and wind, you can't go out there for that. But other than that, it would be being sick or being on a vacation. Other than that, I was outside, I think, for 3.5-year period, at least 1,000 nights of just standing guard, pretty much. I mean, I was in the Navy. I just have to stand guard there. And so, just being alert and being out there and waiting for them, because I knew it was real. And I knew that you and I live in one of the most bizarre places there are for UFOs.
It really is. This place it's difficult to explain until you see it. And it looks really pretty from afar. And I mean, you live without giving our neighborhoods, you live so close to me that when I contacted you, I was just floored. And we're kind of in that same little viewpoint. And it's really amazing, Steve, that you have gathered your footage is nothing less than remarkable, I think, and your methods of getting it. It is kind of a cat and mouse game, it seems. These things, and I call them things because we're in a difficult position here in Vegas, and you and I know this. We have military presence, a lot of wealthy individuals with helicopters, private jets, all kinds of aircraft, city aircraft, sheriffs, you name it, it's in the sky. But also, there is some other craft that is very difficult to explain. And do you think that some of it may be military? Because I'm getting a lot of that online, but I don't know.
Oh, yeah. Yes, absolutely. I always try to make a point of never making a claim like, okay, see this UFO, this is from, a black project, or this is aliens, or this is our own reverse engineered. I can't ever say that because from day one, I mean, my goal was to be honest and just talk about what I'm seeing and what I know. And I have learned things about them, but I would say that a good percentage of what we see here is probably have some sort of relation to the military, though. When you see these things out over or on the edge of an Air Force base or the Nellis Test Range or somewhere like that, you have to, it's just logical that, first of all, they're there. Nobody's chasing them down. These are extremely unusual. You don't see any other videos of anything like this anywhere. And yet, no one's giving chase.
Yeah, it's really interesting living in Summerlin. And I say that because it is Las Vegas. Everybody knows about nearby Area 51. And we have Nellis, and we have Creech, and we have all these areas that have interesting aircraft going in and out of them. And for example, I have a neighbor up the street from my mother's house. She lives very close to me in the community. And I guess he was saying he was at a barbecue and it was in the same community, and he had a friend over at his house, and the friend worked at Area 51, and he said, "Hey guys, look up. In about 1 minute, we're going to have something fly by." And sure enough, this drone kind of buzzed the barbecue. And so it kind of, everybody knows somebody who knows something about, you know what I mean? And
Yes.
and it's a reality that's hard to escape. And the military factor, I think that's really cool, but there's something majestic about this area in particular, that you have caught some pretty amazing stuff, and you've caught some pretty amazing stuff from different mountain ranges all over here. But this particular one, La Madre, can you tell people a little bit about La Madre?
Well, yeah. La Madre Mountain is part of the Spring Mountains, and then all of that is part of Red Rock Canyon, which you would probably agree with me that it's so beautiful that it actually, I think, would qualify to be a national park. And it amazes me that not that many people know about it that come and visit Las Vegas. But, a year after that I got started doing this, Ryan, there was a gentleman back east in North Carolina who had been following me that wanted to donate a night vision camera to me. And I don't ever ask for any donations. I don't ask for anything. I mean, I guess it's just how I grew up. And I said, "Oh, don't worry, I'll save money and I'll eventually get there." Well, he said, "No, listen," he goes, "I have like 7 cameras. There are 2 of them I have here that I don't use anymore." So he sent me one, and that was the most amazing thing that ever happened in terms of me doing this, because it opened up a whole new world of things that I didn't even know existed. This monocular, it's made by a company called Luna Optics. I see a lot of people using that same model, and what they do is they aim it up at straight up and using the green screens and shooting video of the sky and watching satellites and even probably UFOs come over from time to time. But for me, I decided to use it more like a regular camera because it can magnify the light like you wouldn't believe. And it was catching, things that just were shocking. And especially when I aimed it to the northern part of the sky, when you look more towards Area 51 and out on the Nellis Test Range. And it didn't take long before I started catching these groups of 4. And I don't know what they are. I mean, they look like white spheres using the monocular, but if there's times when you can see inside them, and there are these 2 tiny little orange dots of light, that these things can change. I mean, over almost 6 years now, I've seen them change from one to the other, to the other, to the other, and I think they are the bulk of what I see in that area. But it just opened this whole new world. I started recording videos of these things, and I now have a pretty large collection of them. But, the Madre Mountain, the Spring Mountains, the Las Vegas Mountain Range, and the Sheep Mountain Range are all, I'll use a new term, off-the-hook incredible with what kind of things that happen in them. And I make mistakes just like anybody else, and I have in the past. And I've put up videos that looked fabulous, and I research them. I want to debunk my own videos. I never want to post a video that isn't a legitimate UFO. So I've had to take some down. But some of these, they're so profound that there's just no way you can even debunk them. And it's in the last year, Ryan, that I start seeing them much closer to home, which is awesome because you can get better videos, and they're just amazing. And then once you start thinking that you've seen it all, something else happens, something new that you've never seen before. And that's what's going on right here in our neighborhood and just right there nearby.
Yes, it is. It's something else when you see this stuff. And I had just to kind of correlate with what you're saying, I had my mother-in-law over one day in our pool, and she's a disbeliever of everything, and a wonderful woman, love her so much. And we're sitting there in the pool, and I'm looking at the sky, and I'm seeing something that I don't even want to bring up. And like you said, just to kind of give a little backbone to what these objects in the sky, these white round objects you're discussing, these are exactly what we saw.
Did I lose you?
No. Oh, can you hear me okay?
Okay, I can hear you now. I seemed like I lost you there for a sec.
Yeah. Well, we saw these objects exactly what you are discussing. These white objects in the sky, and there were about 4 or 5 of them. And I just pointed them out to her like, hey, just kind of jokingly, hey, Linda, what do you think those are? And, she's a disbeliever of everything. She looked up, and about 60 seconds later, she said, I've never seen anything like that in my life. And it's stuff that you don't notice, but you have an incredible eye for this, and you've done a really good job of documenting this, Steve. I have to take my hat off to you because, a lot of people, for lack of a better word, they're just not looking up.
Yeah, well, you know what I think, Ryan, is that, first of all, I mean, let's say we're watching some program or somebody is a UFO hunter, right? Typically what they have to do is they have to have a team of people. They load up all their gear. They go somewhere, in maybe even a different state or even a different country. And they only have so many opportunities to get out and try to document it. They might spend 2 or 3 nights camping out and doing it. But the thing is what's different about me, and you know this because you live in this area, we are at one of the highest elevations in Las Vegas, and Las Vegas isn't flat. It's more like a bowl. And, where we live is almost like being up on the rim of a bowl. And you can see down in. You can see everywhere. We don't have a lot of foliage or anything like that. There's nothing blocking our views. But the main thing is with me is that I did this because I knew that all I had to do was keep my batteries charged, keep my cameras by the back door, and walk out my back door and 15 steps up onto a cement pad that I have in the corner of the yard and set up my cameras. And, I always said it's a numbers game. If abductions happen, if UFOs visit the city, which I knew they did, if all of this stuff happens, that if I go outside every night for 2, 3, 4 hours, just depending on what's going on, then my opportunities to capture something are going to be increased greatly. And, I did it. I burned out at the end of it. About 3.5 years into it, I kind of burned out and then backed way off. But for those 3.5 years, I was going outside every night. And I know that out of that period of time, I did that for about 1,000 nights or more. And when you do that, you're going to come away with a lot of footage. As a matter of fact, I have 3 external hard drives that I store these things on. And one of them is a 1 gigabyte. Another one is a 3 gigabyte, terabyte. 1 terabyte, 3 terabyte, and a 5 terabyte external hard drives to store these on. Because your computer can't hold them all. And of course, a lot of them are useless. But my advice is always to tell people, if you want to do this, always err on the side of shooting video of it, because if you don't, you missed it. If you do, and it turns out to be a helicopter, a drone, an airplane, or something like that, you can always delete it. So, it worked. And, I'm back. I'm more motivated than ever right now. I got a new camera that's going to be delivered tomorrow. And I'm just super excited about getting out again and starting to put in more time because it's also starting to warm up again. People don't realize it actually gets cold here as well.
Yeah, it is cold here. And like you said, we are above the valley in this particular area, and it's a lot colder. It's about 10 degrees on average colder than everywhere else. And you kind of start to understand why the Native American or some of the Native American tribes were kind of holed up in this particular area of Summerlin. Amazing things. It is like a different world. And I'm guessing, without saying street names, I think I know exactly where you're going, because yeah, it's like, it's a trudge, but it is, man, you get up there and you just know the energy, that little Red Rocks area, you can just tell something was going down. I mean, it is amazing. The petroglyphs and the viewpoints. I mean, they could have seen intruders, enemies, whatever you want to call it, coming from any direction.
Yeah, it's incredible. And, I get a lot of people that are a little bit critical and saying, well, why didn't you grab your camera and drive over there? The thing is that they say that about every video, and they don't realize that sometimes I'm shooting video of something 15 miles away, and that the smartest thing anyone can do, in my mind, is when they see a UFO and you have a camera, hurry up and turn the camera on and get it from right there, because it might be there for 30 seconds, might be there for 5 minutes, or it might be there for an hour. You don't know, and I mean, by doing what they suggest, okay, I'm going to grab everything, get in the car and go, and hope that I'm even going to the right place, that by the time you get there, it's probably going to be gone. And so I have done that, but it has never panned out to be something that people think it should be.
Yeah, it's a lot harder to do, and I agree, the distances these are really big formations. These mountains are really large. Something looks close and it's really far away. We have people, and this, on the news all the time, getting lost out there, perishing out there, getting turned around. And you would never guess it, being next to the brightest city in the world, that, you couldn't find your way back home, but it happens all the time.
Yeah. And then, I've gone out and without seeing one, right? And going to an area where I hope that, something's going to happen, because I've had activity there in the past. And I've gone out there alone and with other people. And I'll tell you what, going out there alone is the creepiest thing ever, because you're there and you're thinking, what if they're right here, right now, and I just don't see them? And they're watching me and wondering, what is this guy doing, right? When you're with others, for some reason, there's more of a sense of being safe. But I don't feel any threat from them. I actually worry more about just weird people that come around, because this is Las Vegas. And there are a few weird people, Of course, then some people must think I'm very weird just because of what I do. But I'll tell you what, I would have never thought of doing this.
And I think, you are not only, I think you're very talented at actually catching the phenomenon, because it's a lot more difficult than people realize. Something else I wanted to ask you is this: I've noticed a lot of strange cloud formations, and I'm wondering if you have too over La Madre, in that direction of Area 51.
I actually shoot a lot of photographs of clouds just because they're so beautiful. And I do see some of them that are very strange, but it seems like most of my luck with this phenomena is something that happens at night. You know, my eyes, Ryan, when I was in my 20s and 30s were just perfect. Even now I don't wear glasses, but my vision is not what it used to be. And I do have friends here locally, a couple of friends, that they don't do this all the time, but they are really interested in the topic. One lady who lives over in Centennial Hills has some daytime footage of these metallic-looking orbs up over, the Centennial Hills area that are just astonishing. And I have spent a little bit of time in the daytime outside trying to watch and see what I can see with a very limited amount of success, things that are, debatable. But for whatever reason, at night, they just become so much easier to see. I've always thought that if UFOs want to move around here in Vegas, it's probably better to do it during the day because they're harder to see.
Yeah, the daytime, I'm with you. I haven't seen anything in the daytime other than that pool. When we were in the pool and there was 4 or 5 of these just sitting there, kind of floating around, inexplicable really. And the area there over La Madre, to kind of explain to people, we're talking almost directly in the direction of Area 51, but it's a long ways away. And we have this huge mountain, if you can picture it, that towers over all the homes. And it kind of seems like the weather starts there, like, if not Red Rock Canyon deeper in there, and behind this is all conserved land. There's nothing, literally, in a beautiful way, like a natural way, nothing behind this mountain. I mean,
yeah. Well, Ryan, I grew up here. I was a kid growing up here, and so we lived here. I'm 65 years old. We moved here when I was 2, so that was in 1956, and then I went in the Navy in 1972 and never lived here again until 2011. But the Mount Charleston area hasn't really changed much at all. And you get off of the main road there, it doesn't take but a few minutes to feel like you are, in the middle of some, just out the middle of nowhere in a way. And the same thing goes with the desert. You get out there and it doesn't take long to feel like you're pretty remote,
Real quick. Yeah, you realize that you are in the middle of nowhere. My gosh. I mean, the expanse actually, people don't realize Vegas is kind of in the middle of nowhere. It's a huge city. It's super bright. There's a lot going on, a lot of energy. But if you look at it on a map, like, it is kind of on its own, with the given exception of Pahrump.
Right. That's often kind of one of the answers I give to people who ask, why would they be there? Why would UFOs be around there? Of course, we've already talked about the military bases in Area 51 and things like that. But, you also have Lake Mead, which is the largest man-made body of water in I think it's in North America or in the United States. We have millions of square miles of empty desert where if you were extraterrestrial, you could be in a UFO that was a mile wide and go land there and nobody would ever notice. So it's just a perfect place. And then, of course, something that people don't talk about that much is, back in the 50s and 60s, I lived here and even remember feeling the vibration of atomic and nuclear bombs being detonated just, I don't know, maybe not even 60 miles away from Las Vegas. So you have the nuclear component going on there as well. But there's just so many reasons that they would be around here.
Tons of reasons. Oh my gosh, it's the brightest point on the earth. And it is like, that's one that, like, a lot of people, I mean, you've got this massive black pyramid, if you're into that, with a light coming out of it going into the sky that's visible from space. And we're just scraping the surface. And then the interesting thing, Steve, is, if I'm not mistaken, I remember hearing right around the time you filmed one of your latest UFOs, Pahrump, which is nearby, the late home of Art Bell, there was a power outage and other things.
I just now heard about that. I'm surprised I didn't. I get so caught up in this stuff that I'm not following the news. I kind of purposely don't follow the news at times because there's just so much negativity. And I realize there's not a whole lot I can do about it, but, except to try to just be a good person. But somebody made me aware of that, and I'm just wondering what happened.
Pahrump is like the little brother next door, and he, the city's just far enough that you can get there in an hour. But, this area has been, I was amazed to find out, through actually my wife, who is very familiar with the area and has to do USGS stuff with the maps. And she made me aware that, even up here in the hills of Summerlin, there were small areas that filled with water on rainstorms. There were massive tribes. Well, not massive, but for the area, what you would expect as high desert and inhospitable, there were tribes there. The petroglyphs are fascinating. Some of the coolest on the planet, really.
Yeah. And you know what else? Another thing that I had found, you don't find much documentation about this, but it is a thing that somebody came up with. If people do a Google search for underground bases in Nevada, there's going to be a list of a whole slew of underground bases here. But one of them, Ryan, is supposedly at Blue Diamond. And, it kind of makes sense if you think about it, because I don't know if you guys explore these mountains much, and there's a lot of sandstone and a lot of limestone where there's actually a lot of natural caves. And, not only did this underground base get, identified as being in Blue Diamond, but even the type of base. And I don't know who came up with it. I take it with a grain of salt, but they say it is a saucer base. And, to me, there might have been a time, 7 years ago where I might start laughing about that. But now, based on my experiences over the last 6 years, I think it's very plausible. It's very plausible.
Yeah, Blue Diamond is kind of it's a different area. It's unincorporated. You have, it's a beautiful little spot with the burrows. Oh my gosh. But it is, for our listeners, it's pretty wild. It is, you have massive millions and millions of dollar homes next to just regular homes. And it's kind of in the middle of nowhere too.
Yeah. And, the way it got its name was, for anyone that doesn't know this, just outside of Red Rock Canyon, coming towards Las Vegas on Blue Diamond Road that comes from Pahrump, is the mine where they process the gypsum that is mined up on top of the cliffs there. And the reason it's called Blue Diamond is that gypsum is the purest gypsum in the world, and it got its name, Blue Diamond, because blue diamonds are extremely rare, and that the gypsum there is extremely rare. It's you just don't find it everywhere. There's also two other things about Nevada that people probably don't know as well, is that it's rich, mineral rich, and two of the big things that are in this state that are constantly still being mined is gold and silver. So, we see these things looking for stuff, and you don't know what it is they're looking for when they're shining a beam towards the ground. I have at least 2 videos of that, where, you initially think, what are they looking for? But then you realize, what if they're not looking for something on top of the ground? What if they're doing some sort of scan that's looking for minerals, or they're looking for some sort of underground base or something like that? So it's just fascinating, and it's the main reason that I can stay motivated for all these years to go out and, deal with the cold, deal with the heat, deal with the insects that are constantly biting me. I wonder, where did I get all these bites, but it's in the summer. You're out there with the insects as well.
Yeah, and scorpions and snakes. And, that is an interesting thing. That area of Blue Diamond, I like to go out there and I kind of launch my ATV and head for the direction of the Pioneer Saloon often. And you realize that you are in the middle of nowhere. And, the interesting thing, Steve, is a lot of people say that. They're like, oh, that's an ATV, or that's a truck or a pickup. And when you're out on these trails, you quickly realize that isn't possible. These roads, they don't go to the tops of the mountains in many cases, and it's impossible.
Yeah, and Nevada's really good about one thing. The desert here is way different than the desert in the Sonora Desert near Phoenix. They have those gigantic dust storms, the haboobs, that come up because their soil isn't compact. Our soil is so solid, and there are trails, there are a lot of trails, but we just don't get that same kind of dust. It is a different beast here, and fortunately, they don't allow a lot of that everywhere. I have videos that I could probably post that I don't, because I don't want to argue over them, and I have enough good videos where I don't need to post them, but they are closer to the ground. And you see these incredible displays of lights doing things, but I don't use them, Ryan, because, people are real quick to slam you even for a great video, one that's up in the sky, clearly in the sky. They're still kind of going after you. So, to present the best possible evidence, I only post the videos that are extremely difficult to debunk.
Yeah, and I think your videos are great. It's like being here and knowing the wilderness behind the areas that you are videotaping, behind La Madre, behind Red Rock, all those petroglyphs and petrographs, drawings, there's springs, the Calico Basin area. You're covering all of this, and this area is so sheltered and so scenic, and so it's really pretty amazing, and it's obvious why it's protected. But I think that you, without a doubt, are the only individual who has been consistently grabbing these visitors or unidentified aerial phenomena in an area where people don't expect it. And I think it's great.
Yeah. Well, I always call it a perfect storm of circumstances, or, I compare it to like winning the lottery. The chances of winning the lottery are just horrific. But you know what? Someone always wins it, right? There's always somebody that just had this crazy situation where everything went right, and that's what happened to me. I had an interest in UFOs, maybe not to the point where, I ever went to a convention or anything like that, but it was always something that fascinated me. If there was ever a UFO program on TV or something like that, I wanted to watch it. But, buying this home, it wasn't because, maybe I can see UFOs from here. What sold me on this house wasn't even the house, it was the backyard. Not big yard. It's easy to maintain. We're getting older. It's a smaller yard. A lot of, drought-tolerant vegetation and stuff. But it just put me over the top that we had this view of the city and the surrounding mountains that was just phenomenal, day and night. And then to have this UFO fly over my home and pique my interest to the point where I decided to just go for it. It's just a perfect storm. It's a perfect storm of things, living near Area 51, 2 Air Force bases, Hoover Dam even, I've heard, has connections with the paranormal, And, I take it with a grain of salt, but you know what? I look what I have a collection now of UFOs that I began almost 6 years ago, and it's just going to keep on getting bigger because I keep trying to get better. And this new camera I'm getting tomorrow I'm really excited about it because it's definitely going to be an upgrade. And I even got a new tripod, which is much more stable, and so I'm excited.
I'm excited as well. And I mean, the cameras that you're using right now are already so good. I'm wondering what exactly, upgrade. I'm like, oh my gosh, what could it be? This is great.
I mean, they're good enough. I mean, I can't go spend $3,000 on a camera. I don't have money like that. But these are like in the $500 range cameras. I had to have something that was better than trying to catch something with your cell phone. I mean, that's good for an emergency situation, but that would be the only way I would use something like that. And then, you want it to be stable, so you buy tripods and you get binoculars, and you need to buy a new computer because your old one can't process videos well. And, my computer that I bought, it's not just a regular computer, it's a gamer's computer. And I don't play games on my computer at all, but it's meant to process large files and big, memory-hungry video games and stuff. And it works really well now for processing my videos.
That is
but yeah,
great.
You get in the hole. If people think you're making money out of this, you're wrong. They're wrong. I'm way in the hole.
Isn't that the truth? It's an act of passion. If you're not into this, you're definitely, I've never made $1, but I'll never stop doing it. I'm with you, Steve. And these encounters that you're having, even if they're from a distance, filming these objects, it seems like this area, I mean, we have Area 51, and I mean, Charles Hall talked about tall whites in areas 54 and 53, and that there were actually aliens in bases underground. So this kind of all has a historical presence.
Well, I've tried to get a hold of Mr. Hall. I have chatted with his wife, Marie, but this was quite a while back before I really understood what it was I was seeing. I could actually make a case in court that much of what I shoot video of in the northern and northwestern part of the city might be the tall whites, and that they are still here. There was one thing that put me over the top on that one was Charles Hall. I didn't read his book, but I watched this long video on his Millennial series and listened to everything, and it just blew me away. But there was one story that he told that, like I say, just put me over the top. It was that over in the Spring Mountains, not far from Charleston, Mount Charleston, is a place called Wheeler Pass. It's all part of that same mountain range. And Wheeler Pass is just a little dirt road that goes through it, that goes from Cold Creek on our side of the mountain over to Pahrump on the other side. And only a four-wheel drive will make that trip. But when you get up into the middle of it, it's very isolated. It's up on the mountain, and it's an old, from the old Western days, a charcoal kiln where they would make charcoal. And anyway, Charles said that these tall whites, for whatever reason, they would come and they would park their scout crafts there and get out because it was fairly flat. And I don't know the purpose for why they would park there. It might be to let the little tall white children out to play or whatever. I know it sounds crazy, but this was one of his stories. And so I wanted to see where those charcoal kilns were. It's because they're still there. And I found them on, Google Earth. And so that was that. I knew where they were. Well, one night, it was, I actually know the date. It was November 12th, 2006. I'm sorry, 2016. I catch 3 objects moving from the north part of the valley to over towards the Spring Mountains, and I'm trying to follow them with that night vision binocular because you can't see them visually. I could never see them with the naked eye. But I'm following them, and I know there's at least 3. And all of a sudden, here they come, and they're now at the La Madre Mountains, over near where I live here, right? Very close. And when they went down, 1, 2, 3, they went down. By that time, I knew not to turn the camera off yet, because about 10 or 15 seconds later, here comes 2 more. So they all went down, 5 of them in one spot. The thing is, I can see exactly where they went down behind the mountain, on the La Madre Mountain. So I got on Google Earth later on, and I just drew a line from my home through that mountain into infinity of where they went down. And you're going to probably guess where that line went right through the middle of is the Clark County charcoal kilns. So these 5 objects went down, they never came back up, and they were right in perfect alignment with those charcoal kilns, Ryan. And that just did it for me. I can't prove it, but I can make a good case.
Sounds like a really good case. That is an amazing area, and it is, my gosh, the interesting thing is that the underground base thing here in Nevada, like I said, if you don't have to live here too long. I think I've been here since 2014. And pretty soon you start knowing people. I can name a few just right within, you could throw a rock and hit people that either have worked at Area 51, work at Nellis, work at Creech, work somewhere with top secret clearance. And one thing everybody agrees on is something is going on.
Oh, yeah. And I mean, it could be, part of it could be that, everyone has a camera in their pocket now. But I don't think that's all of it. Early on, Ryan, there was a concern. I wasn't ignorant to the fact of what I was doing. I felt like I can't get in trouble because I'm doing most of this from my own yard. But for a long time, I didn't mention anything about Nellis Air Force Base or anything like that because I was a little bit nervous about having somebody try to prevent me from doing this. And the more time that went by, the more I realized I'm not walking out of my home and finding some van with 2 weird people sitting in it watching me. It's been almost 6 years, and only twice did something unusual happen. But other than that, no one's bothered me, and I'm just wondering if there has been some sort of soft disclosure happening. In other words, the Navy's coming out and talking about Tic Tacs. All of these details are coming out now, and UFOs are becoming mainstream. You've got Tom DeLonge and, Robert Bigelow and all these big names, Harry Reid. They're all going after this topic, and nobody's trying to stop me. So my feeling is I think there is some sort of disclosure that's been happening. But on the other hand, there's a side of me that says there's stuff that's so fantastic that even though they give us some amazing details, we may not always ever hear all of it.
I think you're right. And as far as Las Vegas being ground zero for UFOs, 100%. I mean, Bigelow, you have Harry Reid, you have Luis Elizondo, Colonel Alexander, George Knapp. The list goes, I could just keep going. And it is obviously very UFO friendly here, the proximity to Area 51. And I have to ask you, you said a couple of times something weird happened. What were those things, and what happened, Steve?
Well, there was one time where I was out in my backyard, and I was actually had something I was shooting video of over towards downtown Las Vegas, and I see this light coming from the distance, and I'm thinking, oh, what is that? Something interesting is coming this way. But So anyway, I turned the camera and I started shooting, and then I could hear it. It was the helicopter. Oh, it's the helicopter. Okay. I turned the video off and, went back for watching for this thing that I had been shooting video of. And all of a sudden, it is a helicopter, and all of a sudden there's a spotlight shining on me as it's going over. And I thought, well, that's weird. Okay, well, it's just probably a coincidence because I see the police helicopters all the time. Well, all of a sudden, here it comes again, and it got me a second time. And they go, okay, now that's really weird because I'm right in the middle of shooting video of a UFO, right? And so by the third time, this time I still have the video. I'm telling people on the video, okay, here it comes again, man. And a third time, and you could even see the lights shining on the neighbor's roof. Okay, but that was the end of it. That just ended. It left. The only weird part that was left in that story is that where that other UFO was that I was shooting video of, that's where the helicopter ended up. It went towards downtown and ended up there. So could have all been a big coincidence. I don't know. The other story was really weird. Not that scary, but weird. I decided one time to go and not tell anybody except my wife and one other person what I was doing. I was going to go just to the outside of Nellis Air Force Base with my cameras and tripod and go to Apex where everyone parks, or going to the Nellis Dunes, actually, where they park and they unload their ATVs and four-wheelers and everything, and they ride, because I see a lot of weird things over there, right? So anyway, I get there right before sundown. That's how my plan always is. I get outside before it gets dark just so I can scan the area and see what's going on. And, I've been there probably an hour. I had my tripod set up, had the camera ready. And, Ryan, I'm not even seeing an airplane, let alone a UFO, nothing. And that area is also where Las Vegas Boulevard runs into Interstate 15, finally. Mm-hmm. And I see this white truck coming down the road, and it has a spotlight on the passenger side. They're shining it all over the place, and it hits me. But they don't stay on me. They turn off the road into the dirt, and they go and they park about 200 yards away from me, behind me, back towards the paved road where I just came from. And they're just sitting there, and I thought, well, they're not bothering me, so I'm just going to wait. But nothing's happening. It's boring as heck. Next thing I know, all of a sudden, I hear my car lock, and the lights start flashing. And I thought, that's weird. I thought, just like sometimes you accidentally set off your car alarm, mm-hmm. I thought that my little keys, did something that caused that. So I took my keys out of my pocket, and I was really actually thankful that they were in my pocket, because I would have been locked out. Mm-hmm. And I unlocked it, and I put the keys back. And next thing you know, within the next 5 minutes, it happened 4 more times. And on the 5th time, I'd already had my keys. I'd already made sure the buttons weren't stuck or anything, and I had them in the palm of my hand just staring at them. Happened again. And I just started laughing because I thought, okay, these camo dudes that are in this white Ranger or whatever it was they were driving, and they're sitting behind me, and they don't want me here. And the part I forgot to tell you is, earlier I mentioned to you a lady friend who get daytime videos of metallic spheres over in Centennial area. Mm-hmm. She was the one I called to tell her where I was going. And that was a dumb mistake, because either they come to that location all the time to scare people away or chase them out, or they had my phone wired or tapped and knew I was going and decided, we don't want this guy here. Because I know we're running short on time, but I now have a friend who is a former security specialist at Nellis Air Force Base, He was there between 2002 or 1998 and 2002.
Mm-hmm.
And the reason I met him was he saw one of my videos that hit home with him because he remembered seeing something. His two words were extremely similar to that. And we became friends, and he told me his stories that go on over there. So that was the second weird thing. But other than that, Ryan, nothing. There's nobody bothers me. I can say what I want to say. I can shoot where I want to shoot. And that's where I am right now. So I plan to continue, and I'm not going to worry about anybody.
Those are really cool stories. And yeah, you kind of have to, you can't go down that pathway of paranoia. I've seen others go down it, and I like your attitude, how you're just like, hey, I'm going to do what I'm going to do. And you're very unique, Steve, in that you're a Las Vegas local from inception. That's very rare, especially living in Vegas. You know, it's a very transient city. You have a lot of people that come here when times are good, they just want to relax. It's a great place to live. Beautiful city. You have the best food. You have the best entertainment. What people don't realize is we have some of the most amazing geography around us as well. And I wanted to ask you about that. I find it strange that there's so many centers and possible underground bases. There was an instance recently where you always hear, and I've heard John Layer talk about it, I've spoken with him about it, about these underground tunnels that go everywhere. And I always kind of thought, this is crazy. Well, there was an instance where I can't name the individual. They have a construction. Anyway, they were doing some work, and they were doing it down by the strip. And sure enough, a machine of theirs, a very heavy machine, fell through the asphalt. And sure enough, massive tunnels going in every direction. And I do find it's like real stuff. And I find it strange that, there's legends of naval warfare centers, underground bases. I can't remember seeing so much confirmation, or there's just a lot of buzz about the military and having things here in Nevada that they don't have anywhere else in the world. So why wouldn't possible visitors be looking, other than the other things we've mentioned, which is, the list is getting longer and longer, but yeah, why not visit?
Yeah, that's why I'm doing this, Ryan, is that, I'm not trying to tell anybody that these are aliens or black projects or anything. I'm not trying to do that at all. The thing I'm trying to do is make people understand through these videos is that you are looking at a real video that is of a real phenomenon here. We don't know what it is until we know, until people come forward that do know what it is. And that may never happen, but it is very real. And, like I say, I give up all of my free time at night when I do this because it's so important. And I think people need to know, we, in our lives, in most of our lives, aren't aware of all of this going on. So there's all this fantastic stuff going on. And in the meantime, it seems like all of this nonsense we hear in the news is almost as if it's designed to just distract us from the really amazing things that are going on. That's why I refuse to talk politics with anybody. And I love that because I can be friends with everybody. I don't have to worry about somebody because they're a certain politic or a certain religion or something like that. This involves all of us, and I want to make sure that everybody has a chance to check this stuff out.
I agree. This is like actual amazing magical stuff that people can, like you said, go right out and look at. And, I'm sure it's happening other places. I didn't know it was happening.
Oh, sure. Even around the valley. I mean, we happen to live in a really neat place. And I'm extending you an invitation right now. Let's get together because if you have the spare time, I would love to do this with you. Yeah, and it fortunately for me, I usually cringe when, I get locals that can we all get together and go do this? And, usually I don't do it a lot, but I've done it probably 4 or 5 times. And one time we had a really nice sighting, which was nice. But, it's nice to have other people that are very into this with you. And then it's even more exhilarating when you do experience something that's obviously, I don't know if it's out of this world, but it seems that way.
Yeah, and I love your style and your thought process, and not, jumping to the conclusion that it's little green men and flying saucers. I think there may be, other advanced hypotheses, and really you're just catching unidentified flying objects that are related and, to a geographical area. And it's just so noble of you, Steve. I can't thank you enough for coming on and talking about it. Where can people keep up with you on social media and watch your videos and all of that?
Yeah, the easiest way to do that, I found, is to go to Google and just do I don't use Twitter, but the Twitter hashtag, or the pound sign, just do hashtag UFOs over Vegas. And when you do that in Google, you will find my YouTube channel, and you'll find my Facebook page and my Facebook group. That's all I have. I was not always the biggest fan of social media, but I realized I must use it to get the word out. And so that's the way to do it. And I try really hard to engage with people on those two platforms. I hate it when you see somebody posting videos and they never make a comment or answer one. So as long as I can, I will always do that. I may not be able to get to everything, but I will try. And, I'd love to see you guys. And I don't care where you're from, but all over the planet, I'm getting a lot of visitors now from France, Mexico, Ecuador, all over the planet. And it's great because we have Google Translation, which I can have conversations with people in their own languages.
Isn't it amazing? The world is becoming a smaller place, and can't appreciate you coming on enough. I can't wait to meet up with you and get some research done. And thanks for all you do, Steve. I hope to talk to you soon.
Yeah, thank you so much, too. Like I say, I get a lot of invitations, but once I knew you were my neighbor, it's a given. So anytime, my friend.
My man, Steve Barone. He's doing stuff nobody else is doing it in a place where nobody else is doing it, and ignoring the status quo. This is exactly the type of people we like to have on Hero Paranormal. He really doesn't care what anybody thinks. And that, in my opinion, is the first step along this happy path to realization that the truth is rampant. It's just not what is accepted. So anyway, check out UFOs Over Vegas. Steve Barone, great guy. Can't wait to cruise all over the hills and see what we see. Check out Steve Barone, UFOs Over Vegas. He's on Facebook. Make it a point. Until next time, everyone, keep your eyes to the skies, feet on the ground, but don't forget to take a look around.
Come blast off in my time machine. Third eye feeling like an Evazine. Blast off, blast off, blast off, blast off. Come blast off in my time machine. Third eye feeling like an Evazine. Blast off, blast off.